What we are witnessing right now inside the American presidency is not rumor, not exaggeration, and definitely not click-driven drama. It is a political earthquake unfolding in real time. Behind the guarded doors of the White House, Donald Trump is unraveling. The strongman image he spent years building is cracking. The president who once commanded loyalty through fear and spectacle is now reportedly surrounded by silence, suspicion, and rage. Sources close to the West Wing describe a leader who feels trapped, betrayed, and increasingly isolated, reacting not with strategy, but with emotional outbursts that are alarming even his closest aides. But the real story isn't just Trump's emotional collapse. The real story is who pushed him there. For nearly a decade, the Republican power structure stood beside him no matter what he did. They defended the scandals. They dismissed the court cases. They twisted themselves into knots to justify the chaos. Trump wasn't just their candidate. He was their weapon. Now, in a stunning political reversal that unfolded in less than 48 hours, the same party machine that protected him has decided to abandon him. Not slowly, not quietly, but ruthlessly. This is not a disagreement over policy. This is not a change in political philosophy. What is happening is something far more brutal, a coordinated removal of a leader they now see as a liability. In other words, this is a palace coup. For years, Americans kept asking what would finally be the breaking point. Would it be the violent attempt to overturn democracy? Would it be the criminal convictions? Would it be the civil judgments holding him responsible for abuse? None of it mattered. Morality never moved them. What changed everything was something far more cold and calculating. Donald Trump stopped looking like a winner. The fallout from the disastrous Metro Surge operation shook public confidence. The chaos created by the federal funding freeze turned into a national embarrassment. Poll numbers collapsed, lawsuits piled up, and suddenly the donors, the real power brokers of Washington, began to panic. To the Republican leadership, this was no longer a controversial president. This was a sinking investment. And in politics, when power senses danger, loyalty disappears instantly. Behind closed doors in Washington, while Trump was publicly raging in court over evidence tied to his surveillance programs, a very different conversation was taking place. Party leaders weren't defending him. They were replacing him. High-level Republicans, powerful governors, and billionaire donors quietly gathered to study polling data, legal threats, and the growing public backlash. The conclusion they reached was brutal in its simplicity. Trump was no longer useful. Trump was now a risk, and risks get removed. Let's be clear. This had nothing to do with suddenly discovering ethics or concern for democracy. These are the same people who looked away when citizens were tracked by AI surveillance tools, the same people who stayed silent as education funding was weaponized, the same people who defended every extreme move until those moves started threatening their own control. They didn't change because Trump crossed a moral line. They changed because he started dragging them down with him. Power in Washington doesn't operate on loyalty. It operates on survival. And the moment Trump began to look like a political anchor pulling the party underwater, the knives came out. What we are watching now is not just the fall of a president. It is the moment a political empire turns on the man who built it. Not because he was wrong, but because he is losing. They are abandoning him now for one simple reason. They are scared of the American people. They see the polls shifting. They feel public anger growing. Voters are no longer buying the chaos, the dysfunction, or the endless drama coming out of this White House. And with midterm elections approaching, Republican leaders are desperately trying to scrub Trump's brand off their records before it drags them under. But make no mistake, history will remember exactly who created this political disaster. You don't get to build a movement fueled by lies and extremism, then pretend you had nothing to do with the monster it became. And inside the White House, the fallout from this betrayal is reportedly explosive. Sources describe a president who has retreated into isolation, locking himself away in the residence, glued to television coverage, raging at every headline. He is said to be shouting at screens, accusing former loyalists of turning against him, convinced that conspiracies are unfolding around him. This isn't the behavior of a confident leader. This is the reaction of someone who realizes control is slipping away. For his entire career, Trump relied on two weapons: intimidation and money. When trouble appeared, he bullied opponents into silence or paid his way out of consequences. But now those tools are failing him. You can't intimidate a Senate that no longer picks up your calls. You can't purchase loyalty from a vice president who is openly admitting on national television that the administration is spiraling out of control. The power structure that once shielded him is collapsing. And for the first time in his life, Donald Trump is trapped. But here's where this situation becomes truly dangerous, not just politically, but nationally. A leader driven by ego who suddenly feels deserted does not react rationally. A president who believes everyone has turned against him while still holding the most powerful military authority on earth becomes a serious threat to stability. This is no longer just a personal meltdown. This is a national security concern. Ask yourself, who is actually running the country right now? Is it a president reportedly losing control behind closed doors, or a vice president publicly distancing himself from the administration's failures? Meanwhile, foreign governments are watching every moment unfold. They see a divided leadership. They see a fractured ruling party. They see chaos at the top of the world's most powerful nation, and chaos invites danger. This entire crisis was set in motion by a move Trump believed would demonstrate strength: the federal funding freeze. In his mind, cutting off money to Democratic-led states would force them into submission. He thought he could pressure governors, punish cities, and bend the opposition to his will. What he failed to understand is that America's economy is interconnected. When major states suffer, billionaires suffer. When markets shake, corporate power panics. And that's when the real phone calls began. Not from voters, not from activists, from Wall Street. Financial giants and major donors contacted Republican leadership with a blunt message: stop him now. This chaos is destroying profits, and that is when everything changed, not when democracy was threatened, not when civil rights were damaged, not when institutions were attacked. The Republican establishment turned on Trump when he started costing them money. That reality exposes the moral decay at the heart of the party's leadership. But the betrayal doesn't end there. Because now we arrive at J.D. Vance, the man Trump personally elevated, promoted, and trusted as part of his inner circle. What we are witnessing isn't just political distancing. It's a dramatic turning point that feels ripped straight from a tragedy, allies transforming into executioners the moment power shifts. This was the man who was supposed to stand beside Trump no matter what, the loyal foot soldier, the chosen heir, the trusted insider. Instead, in barely 2 days, J.D. Vance has begun writing his own political escape plan. Behind the scenes, he's quietly feeding reporters details of the dysfunction inside the White House. On television, he's reshaping his image into the calm, reasonable leader while subtly letting Trump take the fall. And in private circles, he's already being discussed as the next face of the movement. Trump is no longer his leader. He's his launch pad. It's ruthless. It's calculated. And it proves something Washington has always known: loyalty lasts only as long as power does. But here's why all of this should matter to every American household. While these political figures tear each other apart, the actual work of governing is collapsing. As Trump obsesses over who betrayed him, who is managing border security? Who is stabilizing the economy? Who is making sure hospitals, schools, and emergency services receive the federal support they depend on? Right now, the answer is frighteningly simple: no one. The federal government is frozen, not by legislation, but by the emotional collapse at the top. Leadership has vanished, direction is gone, and the country is drifting straight into deeper crisis without anyone at the wheel. That is why this moment cannot be ignored. We cannot sit back and wait for the next election while the executive branch spirals out of control. Congress must step in immediately. Lawmakers, and especially those who still believe in protecting the nation over protecting careers, need to demand transparency about the president's condition. If the leader of the free world is unraveling under paranoia and rage, the American people deserve the truth. This is precisely why constitutional safeguards exist. The 25th Amendment was created for moments when a president is no longer capable of fulfilling the responsibilities of office. It is not symbolic. It is a last resort protection for national stability. And if cabinet officials are privately expressing concern while publicly remaining silent, then they are not neutral observers. They are accomplices in the danger unfolding. I know how exhausting this constant chaos feels. I know many people want to tune it out just to breathe, but that exhaustion is exactly what those in power are counting on. They want the public distracted while they quietly reorganize leadership. They want to swap Trump for a more polished version of the same authoritarian agenda and pretend the problem is solved. But removing Trump alone does nothing. The real issue is the system they built together, the surveillance programs they expanded, the operations they funded, the belief that government power should be used to crush political opposition. That ideology didn't begin with Trump, and it won't end with him. Now, this sudden party rebellion does show something important. Public pressure is working. The lawsuits are hitting hard. The protests are forcing change. The political cost is finally becoming unbearable. They are retreating. But retreat is not surrender. They are regrouping. J.D. Vance is already positioning himself to inherit the movement, rebrand it, and present it as something new while keeping the same dangerous core intact. We cannot allow that to succeed. What you are witnessing is not reform. It is survival, a desperate political machine trying to save itself from collapse. And if you picture the White House at this very moment, the atmosphere must be chilling. Phones, once ringing nonstop, have gone quiet. News networks are flashing headlines about rebellion within Trump's own party. For a man who thrives on attention and control, this silence is suffocating. And when someone like Donald Trump feels cornered, he doesn't retreat. He lashes out. We should all brace ourselves for what may come next. Desperate firings, reckless executive orders, attempts to push the law beyond its limits, and possibly efforts to ignite chaos among supporters once again. When a leader believes he has nothing left to lose, restraint disappears. That makes this moment one of the most dangerous in modern American politics. Institutions meant to protect stability are cracking. Courts are under pressure. Party leaders are focused on saving themselves, which leaves the responsibility where it has always belonged, with the people. We must become the guardrails when the system fails. Right now, the only thing preventing this nation from sliding into complete disorder is the awareness of the American people. This story cannot stay hidden. It has to be talked about. It has to be shared, because the illusion of the untouchable strongman is finally cracking in public view. The figure who ruled through fear and spectacle is being exposed, not by his enemies, but by his own inner circle. The myth of invincibility is collapsing. And while this moment feels like long-awaited justice, it is also the most dangerous phase of any political collapse. When power begins fighting itself, stability disappears. Ask yourself, if Washington is consumed by betrayal and chaos, who is protecting the nation? History shows us that adversaries strike when leadership is divided, weakness invites aggression, and right now, the United States is projecting confusion instead of strength. This is the true legacy of Donald Trump, not unity, not strength, but fragility. Institutions weakened, communities divided, a political party tearing itself apart under the weight of one man's ego. He promised greatness. What he delivered was instability. And as tempting as it is to enjoy watching those who abused power now turn on each other, we cannot allow satisfaction to replace responsibility. The damage left behind is massive. Trust in democracy must be rebuilt. Norms must be restored. And no individual, not a politician, not a billionaire, not a movement leader, can ever again be allowed to accumulate unchecked power over the nation. This dramatic 48-hour collapse is not the conclusion. It is the turning point. What happens next depends on the choices people make right now. Do we allow the same forces to rebrand themselves and continue their grip on control? Or do we use this moment of weakness to reclaim democratic accountability? One side has already chosen self-preservation. The people must choose justice. We must choose truth. And we must demand consequences for every abuse of power that brought the country to this edge. Ignore the distractions. The petty political drama is noise. Focus on the reality. The leadership is unstable. The party is splintering. The policies are collapsing. And public pressure is finally breaking through. We are watching the downfall of a corrupt political era in real time. And history will remember how the people responded. Donald Trump is unraveling because he has encountered something he cannot dominate or manipulate. A united public refusing to surrender democracy. This is a victory, but it is not the finish line. The coming days will shape the future of the nation. Stay informed, question narratives, watch actions more than words. Yes, the power brokers are fleeing, but the country is still drifting dangerously close to disaster. Now is the moment for citizens to take control of the direction forward. The last 48 hours proved one undeniable truth. Those who seemed untouchable are afraid, and they should be. Because when people stand together to protect democracy, no tyrant can hold power forever.